Over the past few days, we've seen a lot of prospects change teams and a lot of veterans get moved, which clears the way for more prospects to finally get a chance at the show. So, with the dust still settling from the MLB trade deadline, let's beat the breakout and stash some prospects right now who are ready finally to make a splash. And it only makes sense to start with the number one prospect in the majors at this point. And for the Rays, one of the busiest teams at the trade deadline, they basically have cleared the path for Junior Caminero, who might finally get to see some action this year. Isaac Paredes, his threat at third base is gone. Yandy Diaz, as of right now, not yet, but might also be gone. Ahmed Rosario, also gone. I mean, there's really no excuse not to play Caminero. Now, the only thing is that he has had some injuries. He just came back recently from a quad injury. He spent some time on the IL in the minors, but once he's actually shown that he can stay healthy for a while, and I don't think it'll be too long before he's called up because why not? The Rays are already in full rebuild mode. Why not let this guy show what he can do? I know he's only 21, but still, this is what we've been waiting for. You need to get fans in the seats somehow, right, Rays? Since coming back from the IL late in July, he's hitting 281 with a pair of home runs already in just his small cup of coffee last year with Tampa. He showed that power, hit some really hard line drives. This is a guy who's just a stud in the making. And so, not sure his exact ETA at the moment. It can't be too far off. Now, Caminero is also, by virtue of being one of the top prospects in all of baseball, if not the number one prospect, depending on who you listen to. He's not going to be universally available. He's one of those few prospects who, despite not having seen any at bats in the majors this year, might still be rostered somewhere. People have been stashing this guy, waiting for him to debut. But that said, if he is still out there in your waiver wire, you just have to get him now. And then we've also been waiting patiently for Dylan Cruz, the counterpart to James Wood in Washington, and they've cleared the way for him too. Very considerate of them. Washington, we knew they were going to be sellers, and they conveniently got rid of two starting outfielders. That would be Lane Thomas and Jesse Winker. Now, Wood was a top priority pickup. Hopefully, you stashed him a while ago, and he's been sticking. As soon as Cruz goes up to the Nats, he's going to stay probably for years to come. I'm not sure though if this is going to be a very imminent call up, even though they've already made those trades, or if we're going to have to wait a couple more weeks because Cruz has been a little bit slower to come along. You know that Wood was at AAA, Cruz was at AA to start the season. Now at AAA, he's been fine, but not exactly forcing his way up. In 126 at bats at the AAA level, hitting 246, 4 home runs, 15 RBIs. But what's encouraging is that strikeout rate is really low at only 16%. And he's shown that plate discipline. You know, he's got that great eye and that hit tool. So, really, they don't have to wait for him to prove that he is ready for major league pitching. I think that as soon as he's up, he'll stay up and he'll be fine. So I don't know exactly whether I want to stash him right at this moment or kind of wait and get a feeling of when he's going to come up. But if you're in a league where prospects fly off the waiver wire quickly, you probably are better off just getting him now. And now, a prospect that was just involved in a trade that might actually open a path for him to play sooner than later is Nick York. This is a second baseman for the Boston farm system that was just moved to Pittsburgh in exchange for young pitcher Quinn Priester. Now, York has been hitting really well this year at the AAA level, batting 310 in 145 at bats, and kind of an insane 35.5% line drive rate. I mean, this guy is not really a slugger, but we're talking about doubles power for days, and he does have some pop. He'll at least get you double digit home runs. So, this is a very intriguing offensive piece. This is not really a guy known for his defense, but he should be able to at least stick at the keystone and provide some pop. Now, it's really interesting that Pittsburgh did this. Not so much that they gave up on Priester, who was at one point a high end pitching prospect, but hasn't really as of yet panned out. But, you know, Boston didn't have an opening right now for York. And it looks like Pittsburgh is just desperate to settle that second base position because Nick Gonzalez, who was their former top draft pick, he just hit the IL. And, well, after being really hot at first, had really cooled down. But they're just tired of playing musical chairs at this position because we've seen guys like Jared Triolo, Ji Hwan Bae, Aliko Williams, Yover Peguero. All these guys have taken turns at second base. I think they'd like to just have somebody stay there. Now, I will admit, I don't know exactly what the Pirates' plans for right now for Nick York. Is he going to immediately become that starting second baseman? They give him a little more time. It's obvious they need somebody there. They don't want to necessarily keep going with what they've been going with. Pittsburgh is technically sort of a wild card contender as of right now. So I feel like them doing this move means something. I'm not necessarily looking to add York outside of NL only or dynasty slash keeper leagues, but it's definitely an interesting name to keep in mind. Now, a guy who you might want to add, especially if you're looking for help at catcher, or you just stream the position, or if you unfortunately happen to be in a two catcher league, well, let's look at the new starting catcher for Detroit who just got called up. That's Dylan Dingler. In his very first major league game, a double, an RBI, a walk. He was batting sixth in that lineup, which now looks extremely different than it did on opening day. The Tigers, predictably and wisely, are going with mostly a youth movement here. And Dingler is going to be the catcher because they just traded Carson Kelly and immediately called him up. And he's starting already at catcher. Don't see why he wouldn't get that job pretty much every day the rest of this season. This is a former Ohio State Buckeye who's now forced to live in Michigan. Oh, irony. And look, he was really good in the minors. This is why they gave him a chance. They traded that veteran, besides the fact that they're obviously not a playoff team. But look, this is a guy who was batting 308 with 17 home runs and 52 RBIs at the AAA level. A catcher who can hit and has some power, always intriguing. So Dingler's a guy that actually has fantasy value already. And while the Cleveland Guardians might not be done adding pieces, I already told you they added Lane Thomas for offense. They're probably still looking to add pitching, but they did just fill one void in their rotation by calling up Joey Cantillo, their number 10 prospect. Now, in Cantillo's first start, it was a threes game, and not always in a good way. He pitched three and a thirds inning, gave up 3 runs, walked three, struck out three, and he was victimized twice by Kyle Schwarber. Now, going against Philadelphia, not an easy task. This was just his first start. So, we'll give him a pass here for not having a great debut. There were some encouraging signs. He did manage 10 whiffs, and so he did manage to at least fool some hitters, but we'll see how he does this second time around. Although it looks like he might be scheduled to face Baltimore in his second start. So I wouldn't start him, but this is somebody that you can stash in a deeper league and see if he manages to stick. Of course, a lot of that's depending on what this Cleveland rotation even looks like in a week. Cantillo has a plus curveball and changeup combo. The fastball is good, but not great. And of course, that's the tricky thing with any pitcher, much less a rookie. If you don't have a really good fastball, you really have to depend on that secondary stuff to work, and you have to be able to at least command the fastball. He wasn't great at it in his first start, so I'm definitely going to keep an eye on him this time around, or maybe the next 2 times around at the very least. Look, we've seen guys like Spencer Schwellenbach of Atlanta look really shaky for a couple of starts and now look really, really good. So sometimes you just have to be patient. You also might want to sell or cut bait on some players before it's too late. That's right. Sometimes you have to figure out whether you should panic or not on some struggling stars. The latest video about those guys is right here.